Pistol Brace Battle. The fight isn't over. We've got major developments in the fight against the ATF's Pistol Brace rule. And here's the thing. This battle is far from finished. Yes, the Trump administration recently dropped their appeal in one big case. That's a win, right? Well, sort of. Because behind the scenes, the ATF might still be planning to come after pistol braces. They're just using a different strategy this time. Let me break down what's really happening and why you need to pay attention. Quick thanks before we dive in. Before we get into the details, I want to say thank you for being here. If you're finding this content valuable, hit that subscribe button. Seriously, check to make sure YouTube hasn't secretly unsubscribed you. They do that more than you'd think, especially on Second Amendment channels. I also want to thank our main sponsor, First Form. These guys are solid. They're pro-freedom, pro-America, and they stand firmly behind the Second Amendment. Plus, they make great supplements. If you've got a New Year's resolution to get healthier, check them out using the link below. Right now, when you order supplements, you'll get a free 5-pack of protein sticks. All right, now let's talk about what's going on with pistol braces. The Trump DOJ dropped one case, but there's a catch. Here's what happened recently. The Trump Department of Justice agreed to drop their Fifth Circuit appeal in a major pistol brace lawsuit. This was the mock case, and it had nationwide implications. When the Biden administration was in power, they appealed a lower court's decision that blocked the pistol brace rule across the entire country. They wanted to overturn that block and bring the rule back into effect. But then Trump won the election. The administration changed hands, and the new Trump DOJ decided to settle the case and drop that appeal completely. That sounds like great news, right? And it is, to a point. Other cases are falling like dominoes once the Trump DOJ dropped the mock case. Other pistol brace lawsuits started getting dismissed too. Courts were marking them as moot, basically saying the issue is resolved, so there's no need to keep fighting. But here's where things get interesting. There's a third major case still in play. This one was filed by Gun Owners of America, GOA, along with the state of Texas and Attorney General Ken Paxton. And they're not backing down. GOA and Texas are asking the court not to dismiss their lawsuit. Instead, they want to push forward and get a permanent injunction. This would stop any future administration, or even the current ATF, from going after pistol braces and treating them like short-barreled rifles. And guess what? The court just issued an order allowing them to continue. The judge wants more information before deciding whether to dismiss this case or let it move forward to get that permanent protection. This is huge. Let me give you some background. Let's rewind a bit so you understand why this matters so much. The pistol brace rule was created by the Biden-era ATF. They targeted pistols with stabilizing braces and tried to classify them as short-barreled rifles under the National Firearms Act, the NFA. If you know anything about the NFA, you know that means registration, tax stamps, and a whole lot of government red tape. For millions of gun owners who legally bought these pistols with braces, this was a nightmare. Multiple lawsuits were filed against the rule. Eventually, a federal judge named Reed O'Connor struck down the entire rule nationwide in the mock case. This was a major victory. But the Biden ATF didn't just accept defeat. They appealed to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. While that appeal was sitting in front of the Fifth Circuit, Trump won the presidency. The DOJ changed hands. The administration flipped. And the Trump DOJ decided to pull the appeal and admit the case was now moot. So in the mock case, the ATF agreed that Judge O'Connor's nationwide block of the pistol brace rule would stand. The rule is now officially vacated. That's domino number one. Why this win might not be enough right now, the pistol brace rule is blocked. Pistols with braces are not being treated as short-barreled rifles. You don't have to worry about that rule anymore. That's genuinely good news. But there are bigger problems lurking beneath the surface. Here's the issue. By agreeing to drop these cases, we get an immediate win. The rule is gone, and enforcement stops right now. But we also lose the chance to get a bigger, more powerful victory in a higher court. Think about it. The mock case was only decided by a district court. If another anti-gun administration comes into office down the road and wants to take another shot at pistol braces, the only legal precedent we have is that district court ruling. And here's the kicker. Judge O'Connor's ruling was based on procedural issues under the Administrative Procedure Act. Those are the kinds of problems a future anti-gun administration could potentially fix if they're clever about it. More importantly, this ruling doesn't stop the current ATF or a future ATF from claiming they can regulate pistol braces based purely on the statutory text of the National Firearms Act itself, without even needing a new rule. And that's exactly what they might be trying to do. The ATF is still playing games even after the pistol brace rule was struck down nationwide, and even after the Trump administration admitted the rule can't be enforced anymore. The ATF has tried multiple times to go after pistol braces anyway. They're doing it by claiming their interpretation of the statutory text gives them the authority. In other words, they're saying, we don't need the rule. The law itself says we can do this. That's a massive problem. And it's exactly what GWA and Texas are calling out in their case. GWA and Texas are fighting back recently. GOA, the state of Texas, and Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a status report in their pistol brace case. They're arguing that their case is not moot and should not be dismissed. They want the district court to let them move forward so they can get a permanent injunction against the ATF. This injunction would block the ATF from using their interpretation of the statute to regulate pistol braces as short-barreled rifles. In their notice to the court, GOA made some powerful points. They said that recent actions by the ATF raised serious questions and doubts about their willingness to comply with this or any other court's ruling. Here's the critical part. The rule was vacated on procedural grounds, not because a court rejected the ATF's interpretation of the underlying statute. That means the ATF could still try to enforce their interpretation without the rule. GOA and Texas argue that without a permanent injunction, the ATF is in a position to enforce the same restrictions just by pointing to the statutory definition of NFA firearms. And without that injunction, gun owners are still at risk from the ATF's flawed legal theories. What GA is really saying, let me put this in plain English. GOA and Texas are pointing out that the ATF might be playing a sneaky game. The ATF agreed to drop all these pistol brace cases. They agreed the rule won't be enforced and that the lawsuits are moot. But they might still be planning to enforce restrictions on pistol braces using only their interpretation of the NFA statutory text. They believe pistol braces are still short-barreled rifles, and they want to enforce that belief without even needing a formal rule. Right now, nothing stops the Trump administration or any future administration from doing exactly that. That's why GOA and Texas argue their case shouldn't be dismissed like the others. They want to push forward and get a permanent injunction to prevent this from ever happening. The court is listening, and here's the good news. The court agreed that this issue needs more examination. The judge ordered both sides to file briefs explaining their positions. The ATF has been asked to file a motion to dismiss the case based on mootness. They'll need to explain why they think the issue is resolved and the case should be thrown out. Then GOA and Texas will respond with their arguments explaining why the issue is not moot, why there are still real concerns about future enforcement, and why the case needs to move forward. This is genuinely good news for the long-term protection of pistol braces. Why this matters so much if GOA and Texas succeed in getting a permanent injunction against the ATF statutory interpretation. It would prevent pistol braces from ever being treated as short-barreled rifles, period. That would stop any future administration from coming back with a new rule. It would stop the current or future ATF from trying to enforce their interpretation based purely on the statute. It would provide real, lasting protection. What happens next? Now it's going to be interesting to see how the Trump DOJ and administration respond to this. The Trump DOJ and Attorney General Pam Bondi have been somewhat inconsistent on Second Amendment issues so far. We'll have to wait and see what they argue in January when their brief is due. What's their position? What's their intent when it comes to pistol braces going forward? Are they truly committed to protecting gun owners' rights? Or are they going to keep the door open for future enforcement? Those are the questions that need answers. The bottom line, here's where we stand. The pistol brace rule is currently blocked. That's a win. But the fight for permanent protection is still ongoing. GOA and Texas are pushing forward to get a permanent injunction that would shut down any future attempts to regulate pistol braces as short-barreled rifles, whether through a rule or through statutory interpretation. The court is allowing this case to continue. Briefs are being filed, and we're going to find out very soon whether the Trump administration is truly on our side or if they're going to play games with our rights. This is a critical moment. As more information develops, I'll keep you updated. If you found this valuable and want to support the channel, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also check out the other videos on the screen that YouTube thinks you'll find helpful. But most importantly, remember this. This nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars. Stay informed, stay armed, stay free.